A new species walks on the ocean floor using its fins like legs and has a glowing lure on its head to catch prey. A blind eel with see-through skin and no eyes was found around 5 kilometers deep, and a tiny translucent creature with bright red tentacles and huge eyes pulses through the water near Western Australia. These are strange creatures recently found in the Indian Ocean. Scientists exploring the Indian Ocean near the Cocos or Keeling Islands recently hauled up a deep-sea batfish, and this thing is honestly pretty weird. It's a flat pancake-shaped fish that actually walks across the ocean floor using its fins a bit like legs. It doesn't swim much like other fish, it kind of waddles and creeps along. One of the coolest things about it is its built-in lure on its head. It has this little fleshy rod that sticks out in front of its mouth, which it wiggles to trick smaller fish into swimming close enough to get snatched up. These batfish live in complete darkness at insane depths where the pressure would crush most creatures, but they've adapted to survive, moving slowly and conserving energy in a place where food is pretty hard to find. The one scientists found came from about 6 kilometers down, a part of the ocean floor that had barely been studied before. These creatures have been living down there totally unnoticed by humans, and chances are there's a lot more waiting to be discovered. And there was. On the same expedition, researchers discovered a blind eel that might be one of the strangest animals pulled out of the Indian Ocean. It's a soft-bodied eel with completely gelatinous, see-through skin. You can literally see its organs moving inside its body. It's wild to look at. It has no eyes at all because down there where it lives, about 5 kilometers below the surface, there's no light, so vision really isn't much help. Instead, it uses chemical signals and touch to find its way around, and unlike most fish, this eel gives birth to live young instead of laying eggs, which is pretty unusual for deep-sea creatures. Scientists said it was probably cruising around deep trenches and volcanic ridges, places that are basically untouched. A brand new species called however the hell this is pronounced, I'll just go by its nickname, the carnivore flapjack octopus, which was officially named in May of 2025 after being pulled up during a 2022 research cruise around Western Australia's Cocos and Carnarvon Canyon marine parks. So these little guys are about 4 centimeters across, not much bigger than a golf ball. They're soft, squishy, almost see-through, with bright red tentacles and huge eyes that stand out in the deep darkness. They don't swim like your average octopus. Instead, they sort of pulse through the water, and they can flatten themselves to lie right on the sea floor. As you can see, they look kinda like pancakes, hence the name. Not a pancake I'd ever want to eat though. If I saw that on my plate, I'd be a little freaked out. In 2023, researchers working off the coast of Seychelles found 2 guitarfish species that were completely new to science. Guitarfish are weird looking to begin with. They got these flat bodies and long snouts. It almost looks like someone mashed a shark and a stingray together. But these 2 new ones stood out because they were hanging around coral reef areas much deeper than where most guitarfish usually live. Normally you'd find these guys in shallower sandy spots. Turns out though, there's a whole side of their world we didn't even know about, completely unnoticed until someone finally went looking. What's also worrying though is that guitarfish in general are in serious trouble. They're heavily overfished because their fins are used in shark fin soup. And since they live near the bottom, they get scooped up by trawlers all the time. Scientists are still trying to figure out how many of these newly found ones are out there and how bad the threats might already be. This next story is taking up 2 spots on the list. Deep down off the coast of Kerala, India, scientists recently discovered 2 new species of deep-sea eels. These ones live in the dark, crushing depths of the ocean. There's barely any light down there. One of the species belongs to a family of eel which hadn't been reported from Indian waters before. Both eels are long, thin, kind of creepy looking. They're a bit pale, sort of like me. They were found during deep-sea surveys looking for unknown ocean creatures. What's cool is how these eels survive down there. They've adapted to extreme cold and pressure, and their bodies are built for slipping through tight spaces in the seabed. Unlike shallow water eels, these deep-sea versions probably feed on tiny crustaceans or leftover scraps that drift down from above. Because these things come from such deep, dark places, there's still a ton we don't know about their behavior or life cycles. Finding new eel species like this is a big deal though, since deep sea ecosystems are still mostly a mystery. Big fin squid are insanely rare. So rare that most deep sea explorers will just go their whole careers without seeing one. Big fin squid were first caught on camera in September of 1988 off northern Brazil, nearly 4,735 meters down, which is over 15,000 feet. They've got these crazy long skinny arms and big fins that give them this totally alien look. They really do look like something from another planet, and yes, those are arms, not tentacles. Big fins have 4 normal arms and 2 specialized feeding tentacles, but arms stretch so ridiculously long, sometimes as long as their whole body, it's easy to mistake them for tentacles. In 1992, a submersible spotted 2 off the coast of West Africa, and in 2000, an ROV in the Gulf of Mexico filmed one estimated at 7 meters long. More recently, an NOAA submersible captured a big fin in November of 2021 off Florida at nearly 2,400 meters deep. Some of them probably live over 6,000 meters down, which is basically the bottom of the sea. Scientists still don't fully understand how they live down there, but each rare sighting gives them an incredible peek at one of the strangest, most mysterious creatures in the ocean. The smooth-toothed black-tipped shark was thought to be extinct over 100 years ago, until it was rediscovered in 2008 at a fish market in Kuwait. The first specimen was caught back in 1902 by a naturalist Wilhelm Hein in Yemen and sent to the Vienna Museum along with other animals and plants, and for decades this thing went mostly unnoticed. Then in 1985, scientist Jack Garrick examined that old specimen and he identified it as a new species. Since no other specimens had been seen, scientists assumed it might be extinct, and some even questioned whether it was a valid species at all. But then in 2008, during a research expedition, the smooth-toothed blacktip appeared at Kuwait's sharkfish market. These sharks are relatively small, growing up to 4 feet long with a greenish-colored body. They seem to prefer shallow waters and feed mainly on small, bony fish. Not much else is known about them, but the smooth-toothed blacktip is currently listed as vulnerable on the International Union for Conservation of Nature's Red List of threatened species. The Shoshone pupfish is a tiny fish that lives in the middle of the desert, in small springs and drainage areas around Shoshone Springs, California. Scientists thought it had gone extinct by 1969, but in 1986, it was rediscovered hiding in a drainage ditch that had been covered in thick cattails. The population was so small at the time that almost all the fish were collected and sent to universities for breeding programs, just to make sure the species didn't disappear completely. These fish are built to survive extreme conditions. They can handle water temperatures from freezing all the way up to 44 degrees Celsius or 111 degrees Fahrenheit. They grow up fast as well, reaching sexual maturity in just 4 to 6 weeks. The coelacanth is a fish that scientists thought had been gone for 66 million years, basically since the time of the dinosaurs. But then in 1938, a fisherman off South Africa hauled one up and brought it to Marjorie Courtney Latimer, a museum curator. She didn't totally know what she had at first, but after calling in scientist J.L.B. Smith, it was confirmed that this fish, known only from fossils, was actually still a living species, a species that became known as the quintessential living fossil. Coelacanths live in the deep sea, usually between 150 and 700 meters down, or about 490 and 2,300 feet. They've got these weird lobed fins and a tail unlike anything you'd normally see on a fish, which is why scientists think they're kind of like this bridge, a missing link between fish and the first land animals. That's how long these things have been around. Since that first discovery, another species, known as the Indonesian coelacanth, was spotted off Indonesia in 1997. The vaquita is a tiny porpoise living in the northern part of Mexico's Gulf of California. It's basically the rarest marine mammal on Earth. As of 2025, there are fewer than 10 left. They're small, only about 5 feet long. They have dark rings around their eyes. They stick to shallow, murky waters, so that makes spotting them harder. The biggest danger for these things isn't natural predators, it's us. Fishermen set nets to catch another endangered fish called the totaba, and vaquitas get accidentally trapped in them. These other fish they're trying to catch are highly prized, especially its swim bladders, so these nets keep being used even though they're deadly for these porpoises. Conservation teams are patrolling their habitats quite often. They remove nets, they use underwater microphones to try and track them, but just aren't enough resources to fully protect them. So that's a fun note to end on. This does not look like something from this planet. That is one creepy looking creature. Not only does it have this incredibly strange looking head, but the length of those tentacles, it just doesn't look real. But it is. Now, this video was taken at a drilling site in the Gulf of Mexico, but these squids are found all through the warm tropical waters of the Atlantic Ocean, including areas around the Bermuda Triangle. I probably don't need to say this after the clip you just saw, but these things' tentacles get incredibly long, around 4 to 8 meters or 13 to 26 feet. These are the only squids known to live in the Hadal Zone, the deepest region of the ocean, but it makes sense. They definitely do fit in with all the other strange, alien-looking life that lurks down there. What you're seeing here is a fish trying to avoid the deadly tentacles of a Portuguese man-o-war. They're really cool looking creatures, but their stings are powerful enough to kill some fish and in rare cases even humans. If their venom travels to the lymph nodes, it can cause airway blockage, shortness of breath, cardiac issues, and again in extreme cases even death. In every case though, their stings are incredibly painful. Anything that gets that guttural, almost animalistic scream out of you, that's gotta be incredibly painful. This video was posted to the channel Aqua de Leo, who'd been spearfishing with a friend when a wave pushed a Portuguese man-o-war right over his head. He went on to write in the description, "I didn't even see it, but immediately felt the tentacles on my neck and it sent me into a world of pain. As soon as I lifted my head out of the water, I felt it push up against my lips and cheeks, and the tentacles latched onto my mask and neck." He finished off with a pretty important word of advice: never dive alone. Great whites may be terrifying, but have you ever heard of the megamouth shark? Definitely sounds pretty ominous. This is some rare footage of one. Now, it may not look all that scary here, but how about this image? There we go, that's more terrifying. Just imagine if that thing was alive. These are very elusive sharks. In fact, they were only discovered in 1976. Not only can they get really big, up to 18 feet or about 5.5 meters long, but as you can probably tell, they're very odd looking and have one of the largest mouths in the animal kingdom. Huge, wide, and lined with hundreds of tiny teeth, designed for filtering plankton from the water. Now, unlike most sharks that are sleek, fast hunters, the megamouth moves slowly and feeds by swimming through the water with its open mouth, so it may not be the most threatening of sharks in practice, but they do look pretty terrifying, and I'm still sure you wouldn't want to get in one's way. A much more dangerous shark though is the oceanic white tip. There's no escaping these guys. They're found all over the ocean, including the Bermuda Triangle, but they don't go very far north or south, preferring warmer waters, and they can be very aggressive. They aren't very picky about what they eat either. They're scavenging, opportunistic feeders, and if you're ever stranded out in the middle of the ocean, you'll probably be dealing with these things if you're out there long enough. Oceanic white tips have been responsible for tons of attacks during shipwrecks and plane crashes, especially when injured survivors are leaking out their BLOOD into the water. They just love that. It's not that they prefer humans over anything else, they just go for whatever's most vulnerable and easy to catch. So if a plane crashes or a ship sinks, the shark may not hesitate to swim in and check out the scenes, circling the area before picking off the survivors. Imagine, if you will, that you're flying over the ocean on your way to Florida or Puerto Rico, anywhere around the Bermuda Triangle. It's been a peaceful flight. In fact, you're almost nodding off as you stare down at the ocean below. But then you spot something a little strange. A shadow is looming in the water, and it's getting bigger and bigger. It starts creating ripples, which get more and more violent. People around you are starting to notice now. Passengers are even starting to audibly panic, and before you can even react, a colossal figure leaps out of the water, its enormous jaws snapping open, and to your horror, your tranquil window view is soon enveloped by this ginormous beast's gaping maw, and then that's it. You and everyone else in the plane just gone, dragged into the depths of the ocean down below. You've been what I'm going to call Bermuda beasted. We all know what makes the Bermuda Triangle so intriguing are all the ships and planes that have gone missing while flying or sailing through it. There are tons of theories as to what could be happening, and one of them is that there's this massive undiscovered monster gobbling up boats and aircraft dubbed the Bermuda Beast. The coelacanth is a living fossil, a fish that's been around for over 400 million years, practically unchanged. But what I'm talking about today is a relatively recent discovery, first identified off the coast of Sulawesi in Indonesia in the early 90s. Unlike its famous cousin found near Africa, the Indonesian coelacanth lives in deep underwater caves and volcanic slopes in the Indonesian archipelago. These fish are huge, sometimes reaching over 6 feet long, and have weird lobed fins that look more like limbs than typical fish fins. That's part of what makes them so interesting for scientists. They give them clues about how fish might have evolved into the first land animals. Coelacanths are nocturnal, spend most of the day hiding in caves, coming out at night to hunt smaller fish and squid. Back in October of 2024, scientists off Madagascar Ridge identified a brand new skate species they're calling the brown long-nosed skate. So these things can grow over 70 centimeters long. They found 8 of them living way down, about 750 to 1,050 meters deep, swimming around one of the underwater mountains out there. What's pretty interesting is this skate might only live in that one specific area. That's not unusual for deep sea creatures, but it does make them pretty easy to miss and pretty easy to wipe out from fishing. Skates like this are slow growers. They don't reproduce quickly, and they tend to stick to the same places. The problem is, bottom trawlers have already been active in parts of this region, and if fishing pushes into the skate's territory, it could be in serious trouble before we even get a chance to study it properly. The wild part is this isn't some untouched part of the ocean. This is a place where people have been fishing for a while, and we're just now finding out that brown long-nosed skate was living there the whole time. That's pretty crazy. In late 2024, researchers exploring deep reef zones off the Maldives found a brand new species of damselfish called Chromis abida. It's a small, pale fish with this soft bluish shimmer to it. It's not the kind of thing that jumps out at you underwater. It blends in so well, which is probably why nobody noticed it until now. The fish was found hanging around mesophotic reefs, which are deep parts of the ocean where some sunlight still reaches, but not nearly as much as shallow reefs. Of course, they're also deeper than most people dive, usually about 100 to 150 meters down. These reef zones don't get a lot of attention, but they're packed with life. Scientists found this fish at a number of different sites, so it's not like it's super rare, it's just we haven't been looking in the right places. The ghostly damselfish, as it's known, probably spends most of its time darting in and out of cracks in the reef and hiding near sponges, staying away from predators. But the fact that such a common fish went unnoticed this long really makes you wonder how many other creatures are living down there, totally off our radar. Bigger, scarier, more dangerous ones. And scientists just recently identified a new species of shark called Etmopterus brose, or Barry's lantern shark. It was discovered by shark expert Dr. David Ebert and his team. This new species is part of a shark group called Etmopterus, which is actually one of the most diverse shark groups in the world, with around 42 different species known so far. This one lives way down in the Indian Ocean, off the west coast of South Africa, down around southern Mozambique and near the Madagascar Ridge. They live anywhere from 480 meters to 1,200 meters, or about 1,570 to 3,940 feet below the surface. Now, for a long time, this shark was misidentified for other species. It looks very similar to other sharks in its family, but what sets it apart is its skin and markings. Its body is covered in something called dermal denticles. So these are tiny tooth-like scales that protect its body. On this shark, the denticles are especially thick and packed tightly around the base of its dorsal fin. It also has a cool setup on the underside of its snout, a patch of tiny receptors called ampullae. These are sensitive to electric fields and help the shark detect prey. Think of it as a kind of sixth sense, super handy when hunting in total darkness. When it comes to color, Barry's lantern shark has a more subtle look than some other sharks. Instead of a sharp line dividing its darker top and lighter belly, the colors kind of blend together more smoothly. It's mostly all dark. This probably helps it blend in better in the deep water. Well, this thing looks creepy. Earlier this year, a team of researchers from China set out on an expedition to the northwestern Pacific Ocean to explore the depths around the Caroline Plate, an area off the coast of the Philippines. They weren't diving themselves, but instead used an underwater robot to explore the area and collect tiny creatures from the ocean floor. And when the robot pulled up a sample from a seamount, among the tiny critters they found was a pregnant amphipod, a type of shrimp-like creature that's just a few millimeters long. But this wasn't like any amphipod they'd ever seen. This was a brand new species, now been dubbed Esoris carolinus. It's an interesting but again very creepy looking creature. Good thing it's so small. The eyes in particular were noted as being large and very well pigmented, which helped it stand out among the other species that live in these deep waters. And here's the really interesting part. When the researchers looked inside its body, they found 9 baby amphipods growing inside her. This footage here was captured in 2015, a never-before-seen species of squid. So a group of researchers from the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, Guillermo Helmholtz Center for Ocean Research Kiel, and the University of South Florida teamed up for an expedition in the Gulf of California off Mexico's west coast. Using a remotely operated vehicle, the team was able to dive as deep as 8,000 feet without ever leaving the surface and without disturbing the creature's environment. The team managed to capture a large squid on camera, but soon they noticed something strange about this one. The squid was carrying dozens of giant eggs, around 30 to 40 of them, each about half an inch across. Now, squids of the species they thought this mother was, called gonatids, usually carry eggs that are only about a fifth of an inch in diameter, so these were much bigger. They'd never seen eggs this large in any gonatid squid before, and there's no other squid known to carry eggs of this size. So the researchers figured there was a very good chance they'd discovered a brand new species altogether. Pictured here is a brand new species of fish found in Africa. Earlier this year in Zambia, a strange creature was spotted swimming through a river, heading straight for a bridge. Scientists pulled the creature from the water, at first having no idea what they just found, while it turned out they discovered a brand new species. The team had been in the middle of a project studying a group of fish called nanocharax, more commonly known as darters. They were looking at preserved specimens collected from rivers in South Africa when something odd started to stand out. The fish from a few specific rivers, mostly caught in 2005, had a distinct pattern that was different from the usual darters they were used to. These fish had a unique scale pattern and a banded coloring that immediately caught the researchers' attention. And after further investigation, they realized that they'd uncovered a completely new species dubbed Nanocharax skeltoni, or Skelton's darter fish. They decided to name the species after Paul Harvey Skelton, a renowned professor at the South African Institute for Aquatic Biodiversity. A study came out this past April about a brand new species of jellyfish discovered off the coast of Florida, pictured here. Peter Schuchert and Richard Collins carried out 91 nighttime scuba dives near Palm Beach over the course of years, and they found some pretty cool stuff, like, just some never before seen jellyfish, for example. After photographing the creatures and capturing 2 of them, they took a closer look and realized they'd found a new species which was soon dubbed Zancleopsis grandis, or the large Zancleopsis jellyfish. These things are just over an inch tall with tentacles stretching more than 2 inches in length. The body itself has a long, narrow shape that shifts as the jellyfish moves through the water. The researchers named it grandis because of the relatively large size and the big bulbs on its tentacles, and just like other jellyfish, Zancleopsis grandis uses jet propulsion to move. It sucks in water and then squirts it back out through a small opening, propelling itself forward through the water. Kinda crazy that these new things were found in Florida. As Collins put it, part of the work we are doing is to demonstrate and document the amazing oceanic biodiversity here in Florida. Florida waters are well studied relative to most of the world's oceans, and yet there is still so much to learn and discover. And yeah, that is crazy because Florida, right? And then you got all this vast water over so much of the earth. Like, who knows what crazy stuff could be out there. Now, this is the first and only piece of footage ever captured of a living genus of squid called this. Just earlier this year, the Schmidt Ocean Institute led a team of oceanographers on an expedition to some of the remotest parts of the southeastern Pacific Ocean. During their month-long mission, they came across 20 never-before-seen species and another 80 that were observed in this part of the ocean for the first time. These squids have only ever been seen on the surface, i.e. they've been brought up in nets, dead. We've never seen one alive swimming around in its natural habitat, so this was pretty amazing to see. And there haven't even been that many specimens of these creatures either. It's such a rare genus that we've only had like a few specimens, and a lot of them came from the late 1800s. While sailing the waters of the Bermuda Triangle, you may just hear the eerie high-pitched calls of a rare and endangered bird called the Bermuda petrel, also known as the cacao. Now, as you can see, this is a pretty adorable animal, but aside from being cute, there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about with these things. First of all, these are endangered birds, so endangered that for years it was thought to actually be extinct, until it was rediscovered in 1951, nesting on a tiny remote island in the Bermuda Triangle. And then there's the cacao haunting, high-pitched calls that echo over the water. To some, they sound almost ghostly as they reverberate. Their white feathers also give them a bit of a ghost-like appearance as they soar through the air. For this reason, they're sometimes referred to as the ghost bird. Frilled sharks are what are known as living fossils. It's one of the creepiest, most ancient-looking creatures to ever lurk in the deep. These things have long eel-like bodies and sharp needle-like teeth arranged in rows. It's been around for millions of years, and its appearance has barely changed since the time of the dinosaurs. This is why they're known as living fossils. And when you see one, it's easy to understand why it looks like it could have been designed to haunt the darkest corners of the ocean. With its long, tooth-filled mouth, a frilled shark can grab onto prey with this eerie, snake-like motion. It's not a fast swimmer really, but it lurks in the deep and then ambushes fish and squid. Scorpion fish can be found throughout the Indo-Pacific. This is actually a family of fish containing many different species, like the stonefish and lionfish. First off, let's talk about the stonefish. This one is a real nightmare if you're walking around barefoot in the shallow water. These fish are masters of camouflage. They look like, nothing more than a rock or a pile of seaweed, blending perfectly with the ocean floor, but if you accidentally step on one, you're in trouble. The spines on its back inject potent venom that can cause excruciating pain and even paralyze you. In some cases, it can be deadly if you're not treated quickly enough. Then there's the lionfish, which is a pretty cool looking animal, terrifying in its own way though, and it's even worse if you get near it. This fish has long spiny fins that look like razor sharp daggers protruding out of their bodies. It's not really an aggressive fish, but if you get too close, again, its spines can inject a painful venom. Look how strange this creature looks when it eats. This is a goblin shark, pretty apt name. Goblin sharks have these long, flattened snouts that look, to put it bluntly, pretty ugly. The other cool thing about them though is that, as you just saw, their skin is almost translucent. But the real horror comes from its extendable jaw. The goblin shark's jaw can literally shoot forward to snatch prey like some freaky mechanical contraption, grabbing onto whatever fish or squid it's after. Pretty disturbing stuff. Now, luckily these are deep sea dwellers, typically found in waters between 200 and 1200 feet deep, so it's not something you're likely gonna bump into while snorkeling. Now, we talked about the creepy looking big fin squid at the top of the video, so seems fitting to close out with another type of squid, the giant squid. A seldom seen creature lurking in the depths of the ocean, once thought of as a mythical creature. The giant squid is one of the most incredible creatures ever discovered. It can grow up to 40 feet long, possibly even bigger, making it one of the largest invertebrates on Earth. Tentacles that could wrap around your boat like a snake, massive suction cups that could hold on to anything that gets too close. Basically, they're the real-life versions of the kraken. These creatures rarely come up to the surface though, only venturing into shallower waters occasionally, so they're not the easiest animal to study, which is why they were placed in the realm of myth and legend for such a long time. For centuries, sailors and fishermen would tell tales of sea monsters, stories of enormous tentacled beasts dragging ships under the waves, and it's very possible that at least some of these stories were based on real encounters with the giant squid. The blue-ringed octopus is one of the most fascinating but terrifying creatures in the ocean. There are 4 known species of these octopuses, and they all share one thing in common. They are highly venomous and can kill a human in just a matter of minutes. The venom they carry contains tetrodotoxin, a neurotoxin that is 1,000 times more potent than cyanide. Even more frightening is that there's no anti-venom to counteract the effects, making a bite from this octopus potentially fatal. Tetrodotoxin is spread throughout the octopus's body, not just in its venom glands, which is what makes these creatures both poisonous and venomous. The blue-ringed octopus is typically found in tropical and subtropical waters of the Indian and Pacific Oceans. They get their name from those bright blue rings on their bodies, which only appear when the octopus feels threatened or is about to unleash its deadly venom. What's especially terrifying about this species is that their bites are often painless, so you might not even know you've been bitten, but the venom works quickly, paralyzing the body and often leading to respiratory failure. The effects can be rapid, with death occurring anywhere from 24 hours to just 20 minutes after the toxin enters the body. Cone snails are fascinating creatures, and while over 1,000 species exist, there's one species in particular that you just don't want to get near: the geography cone snail. These mollusks are predatory, using specialized venom-filled teeth to paralyze their prey, which is usually small fish, invertebrates, or other snails. The geography cone snail is dangerous though. It can grow up to 6 inches or 15 centimeters long, and its venom contains more than 10,000 active compounds, which are powerful enough to paralyze and even kill humans. A sting from a geography cone snail can cause respiratory paralysis and death if not treated immediately. The venom attacks the nervous system and can lead to suffocation. Over the past 30 years, about 15 people have died from geography cone snails. These things are stealthy and fast too. Their harpoon-like teeth strike so quickly that most people don't even realize they've been stung until it's too late. When it comes to marine creatures with the potential to kill, few are as feared as the box jellyfish. These creatures are famous for their venom, which can cause paralysis, heart failure, and even death within minutes. Box jellyfish are especially dangerous in regions like northern Australia and Southeast Asia, where they're found in large numbers. The Australian box jellyfish has tentacles that can reach up to 10 feet or 3 meters long, and their bodies can grow up to 12 inches or 30 centimeters in diameter. Just one sting can inject a massive amount of venom into a victim's body. It can paralyze a person almost instantly, and if enough venom is delivered, it can lead to heart failure. There are over 50 known species of box jellyfish, but another one of the most feared is the irukandji jellyfish. These ones are much smaller, under an inch, but that's kind of what makes them so scary. Their venom is potent and can cause what's called irukandji syndrome, symptoms of which are intense pain, muscle cramping, high heart rate, and BLOOD pressure, along with fluid in the lungs. It can cause life-threatening heart complications. In Australia alone, between 50 and 100 people are hospitalized each year with irukandji syndrome, and the number of box jellyfish-related deaths, though hard to track, may be much higher than reported. The beaked sea snake is another terrifying sea creature found off the coasts of India, Australia, Africa, and the Arabian Sea. This species is considered one of the most venomous sea snakes in the world. It's part of a group of 64 species of sea snake, but the beaked sea snake stands out for its aggressive nature and incredibly potent venom. This snake's venom is so powerful that it's 8 times more toxic than that of a cobra. A mere 1.5 milligrams of its venom can kill a human. A full dose can kill up to 22. The venom contains a strong neurotoxin that causes paralysis, including paralysis of the diaphragm, which can lead to respiratory failure. Though bites from sea snakes are rare, researchers are especially wary of the beaked sea snake because it is known to be more aggressive. Most sea snake bites happen when fishers try to disentangle them from their nets. Stonefish are some of the most well-camouflaged creatures in the ocean, making them fascinating but terrifying. These fish blend in so perfectly with their surroundings, whether it's rock, coral, or the seabed, it's almost impossible to spot them. And that's precisely what makes them so dangerous. They remain perfectly still, waiting for prey to pass by, and when the moment comes, they strike, ambushing and swallowing their prey whole. But it's not just their hunting skills that makes a stonefish so terrifying. The venom in their dorsal spines is released when the fish is disturbed. If you happen to step on one, well, let's just say you'll probably regret it. Stonefish stings are said to be excruciatingly painful and cause intense swelling in the affected limb within minutes. If the sting isn't treated, it can lead to necrosis and in some cases even death. Luckily, fatalities are rare, and immediate treatments like heat immersion, which helps to neutralize the venom, and anti-venom can help save lives. But no wonder scientists are more hesitant to study these creatures in the wild, given the risk of encountering one while out in the ocean. Sea cucumbers don't really sound all that scary, but I mean, just look at this one. This is what's called a brown-ringed sea cucumber, and it was just discovered. Scientists on a submarine were exploring the South China Sea when they spotted this small, reddish sea creature. It didn't quite look like anything they'd seen before, and as it turns out, it wasn't anything they'd seen before. It was found during a series of dives between 2018 and 2023, using a manned submersible. When the team surfaced and had a chance to study the creature, which had something like 20 tentacles and over 72 feet, they realized that they'd uncovered a new animal and gave it this crazy name that, again, I can't even begin to pronounce. AKA the brown-ringed sea cucumber, though. This new species of sea cucumber can grow to about 8 inches long and around 2 inches wide, and this wasn't all they found either. Yanlu Zhao and Haibin Zhang, part of the research team, also discovered 2 more new species of sea cucumber on the same expedition. Next up, we have another story that came out this past April about a new creature discovered off the southern tip of China. Just what is this thing? An ancient wood carving? Well, no, it's actually the shell of a living animal. A research team from China was exploring a deep sea area called the Haima Cold Seep off the coast of Hainan Island when their underwater robot picked up something from the sea floor. It was a shell, and at first the researchers didn't really think much of it, but once they took a closer look, they were like, well, actually, what exactly is this thing? The shell belonged to a type of mollusk known for living in extreme environments, like cold seeps. These are special areas on the seafloor where chemicals like methane and hydrogen sulfide leak up from the Earth's crust, creating this chemically rich water that only very specific life forms can survive in. This weird shell was just over 4 inches long and had a, quote, robust and rectangular shape. The mollusk's foot, the part that sticks out from the shell when it wants to move around, was described as large with an oval sole. But it was really the shape of the shell that made this thing so unique. It's the fact that it's rectangular. Other species' shells are usually curved inward on the ends. Just look at how gorgeous this snail is. On the coastlines of Japan, a tiny new species of sea creature has been found. Hiroshi Fukuda, a researcher and associate professor at Okayama University, first came across these rare snails over 30 years ago when he was still a student. They were actually relatively well known in Japan, but had never been formally documented until last year. Fukuda studied dozens of these snails and ended up naming them this. And luckily, it has a much easier to pronounce nickname, the strange dwarf snail. These snails are tiny, measuring less than 1/10 of an inch long, and Fukuda described these snails as bizarre. These things are small, but they move around quickly, crawling in step-like movements. Fukuda wrote in his paper that they're usually found crawling on muddy walls of earthworm and crab burrows, which might be why they were overlooked for such a long time. This strange-looking animal was discovered in an underwater cave. A team of researchers recently discovered a brand new species of hermit crab in a dark underwater cave in Japan, about 100 feet from the entrance. The three-person team found this tiny critter in just about 3 feet of water. After carefully examining the male specimen, they realized they had come across a new species. This is its name, also called this. Not even the alternate name is easy to say. This new species is incredibly small though, measuring less than 1 centimeter long. Aw, that's cute. What really set it apart from other hermit crabs were its claws. They were described as strongly unequal and dissimilar. The right claw is moderately slender, the left claw is much smaller, only about half the size of the right one. And this last thing looks like it just hurts. There's like little spines and spikes on it. In March of 2021, researchers took a deep dive into the South China Sea using a manned submersible. During one of their dives, they came across a large crab sitting on some coral. They captured the creature and brought it back to study. Until then, this was a never-before documented species, which was later dubbed Gordonopsis mazupo. Finally, a scientific name that I can actually get my lips around. But they're also known as Mazu's porter crab. This new species is considered pretty big for a crab. Its body is about 1.2 inches long, with legs stretching more than 3.5 inches. When you include its legs, the crab measures over 8 inches across in total. Its claws are especially interesting, described as blade-like. The researchers named it Gordonopsis mazupo after Mazu, the Chinese goddess or grandmother of the sea. And so far, only one of these things has ever been found. Japanese sailors had plenty to worry about when they set out to sea. Storms, shipwrecks, the pure vastness of the unknown, but nothing unsettled them quite like the umibozu, said to be this massive, shadowy entity that would rise up from the ocean on calm nights, a towering black shape with no real features other than its glowing white eyes. Not the type of tentacled or serpentine sea creature you usually picture, and it didn't act like one either. It wouldn't attack right away. Instead, it would demand a barrel from the crew, and if they gave it one, it would use it to then scoop water into their ship until they sank. If they refused, well, things didn't end much better. It's kind of a lose-lose situation. No one really knows where the legend comes from originally, but some say that umibozu is the ghost of a drowned monk, cursed to haunt the sea forever. Others think it's more of a warning, a way to explain how fast things can turn deadly out in the open water. In some versions, it only shows up when someone on board has angered the gods, meaning if you saw one, your fate was already sealed. The Lusca is a creature that haunts the waters off the Caribbean. Once again, this thing probably doesn't look like anything you're imagining. It's said to be half shark, half octopus. Some even describe it having 3 shark's heads, so a pretty bizarre looking monster and equally as terrifying. It lurks in the dark depths of underwater caves, ready to drag unsuspecting swimmers or boats down into the water. Local fishermen and sailors who spent too much time on the water often share these chilling stories about close encounters with it. Many sightings of the Lusca have been reported near the blue holes of Andros Island in the Bahamas. One of the most famous incidents happened on January 18th of 2011, when what appeared to be the body of this giant octopus washed up on Grand Bahama Island. Witnesses said that the remains looked like just a part of the creature's head and mouth, and the rest of the body missing. Based on what they saw though, local fishermen who were familiar with octopus anatomy estimated that this creature, if intact, would have measured between 20 and 30 feet long when alive. The description of this next creature is pretty strange, but it actually has roots in real-life reports. It's called Steller's sea ape. It was first described by Georg Wilhelm Steller, a German naturalist who came across it during an expedition to the Bering Sea in the 18th century. According to Steller, the creature was seen in the waters near the Commander Islands, a remote part of Russia. What makes it so strange? Well, it was described as this mix between a primate and a seal, an ape-like creature with the body of a seal, complete with dark fur, a wide mouth, and a flat nose. Some reports say it had a tail like a seal's, but with the arms of a monkey even. I told you this one was gonna be strange. The sea ape was said to have been spotted in the wild swimming and occasionally popping its head out of the water. There's a theory that it could have been a type of extinct or undiscovered sea mammal, a creature that went extinct before scientists could get a proper chance to identify it. Trunco is another weird one. It's the nickname given to an animal reportedly seen off the coast of Margate, South Africa, on October 25th, 1924. The creature was first noticed battling two killer whales, which allegedly fought with it for about 3 hours. Witnesses claim the strange creature used its tail to fend off the whales and even managed to lift itself out of the water by 20 feet at one point. After the battle, the creature's carcass washed ashore on Margate Beach, where it remained for 10 days. The animal was said to be around 47 feet long, 10 feet wide and 5 feet high. It had a trunk about 5 feet long and 14 inches in diameter, and a tail that measured about 10 feet. One of the most unusual features was its snowy white fur, which was about 8 inches long. Interestingly, the trunk was also attached directly to the torso with no head visible. This led British cryptozoologist Carl Schuker to dub the creature Trunco in his 1996 book, The Unexplained. Ogopogo is the mysterious creature said to live in Lake Okanagan, British Columbia. Described as a serpent-like monster with a long, undulating body, the creature has been part of local folklore for centuries. Indigenous tribes around the lake have long spoken of a water monster said to control the waters, creating waves and whirlpools to drag people under. The first European sighting was recorded in 1872, but the legend really gained traction in the 1920s. Since then, there have been numerous reports with witnesses claiming to see this large creature with humps rising out of the water, sometimes with this horse-like head and reptilian features. Some skeptics argue that Ogopogo is just a misidentified sturgeon or a floating log, but the fact is, sightings just continue to this day. Could it be some prehistoric survivor, a remnant of creatures like the plesiosaur or a giant eel? The pufferfish or blowfish is another sea creature with a deadly surprise. When threatened, the fish inflates itself, making it much harder for predators to swallow. Some pufferfish species even have spikes that protrude when inflated, but what makes the pufferfish so dangerous isn't the inflated body or the spines, it's the potent neurotoxin they carry inside their bodies. Tetrodotoxin is at least 1,200 times more toxic than cyanide. The toxin is concentrated in the fish's internal organs and skin, and even a small amount can be deadly. In fact, just one pufferfish can kill up to 30 adult humans. The fish's toxicity makes it highly unappealing to most predators, but in Japan, it's actually considered a delicacy. Fugu is a dish that's carefully prepared by licensed chefs who are trained to remove the toxic parts of the fish, but mistakes can happen, and when they do, the results can be fatal. Before Japan's licensing system, there were numerous deaths every year from improperly prepared fugu. Thanks to the licensing system, though, fatalities have gone down, but there's still the occasional case of food poisoning, often when people try to catch and prepare pufferfish on their own. The Titan triggerfish. Marine biologist Selena McMillan described being chased by one of these things, saying it was one of the scariest moments of her career. The Titan triggerfish is a large, colorful species of triggerfish found in coral reefs of the Indo-Pacific. These fish are known for their powerful jaws and large, sharp teeth, which are well suited for crushing hard-shelled prey like crustaceans and sea urchins. Triggerfish's teeth are unique because they're straight but incredibly thin, which makes them razor sharp. Despite their delicate appearance, they're surprisingly strong and resistant to damage. These fish are highly territorial, especially during their breeding season. They create and fiercely defend nesting sites on the ocean floor. Divers and snorkelers who may venture too close to these nesting areas may provoke an aggressive response from the triggerfish. They've been known to attack intruders, including humans, to protect their nests. They can also reach over 2 feet or 60 centimeters in length and are found in pretty shallow waters. Viperfish live in the deep, dark waters of the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, usually between 200 and 5,000 feet below the surface. They're not big, but they're definitely fierce. And what makes them terrifying, aside from how damn ugly they are, is the glow they emit from their body. This bioluminescent light is like a built-in lure to attract other fish, tricking them into getting close enough for the viperfish to snap its jaws shut on them. Even though it's not massive, the viperfish is a brutal predator, and scientists are fascinated by these things, but a little scared of studying it because it lives in some of the most extreme depths and getting close enough to study it also means diving into some pretty dangerous waters. Next up, we have the oceanic white-tipped shark. These sharks are adapted to life in the open ocean and are often found far from shore, making encounters with humans pretty rare, and that's probably for the best. In terms of behavior, the oceanic white-tipped shark has a reputation of being aggressive, especially in situations where it associates humans with potential food sources. And because they live out in the middle of the ocean, they take whatever food they can get. They're opportunistic hunters. To make matters worse, these sharks are very unpredictable. They can switch from seemingly calm or indifferent to aggressive at the drop of a hat. The frilled shark looks like it came straight from the age of the dinosaurs. Often called a living fossil, this creature is an ancient species that's been around for over 150 million years. It has a long eel-like body with a head that almost looks like a snake, and its mouth is packed with all these sharp, backward-facing teeth. The frilled shark can grow up to 6.5 feet long, but the most terrifying thing about it is its feeding style. It's able to lunge forward and swallow prey whole using its long, needle-like teeth to trap it. It hangs out in deep waters, often between 200 and 500 feet below the surface. Scientists rarely get a chance to study them up close. The deep, dark waters they live in are hard to reach, and any research that involves these sharks comes with serious risks. Getting a good look at a frilled shark in its natural habitat is a dangerous undertaking. Because of that, there's still a lot we don't know about this eerie, prehistoric predator.
The siphonophore is a crazy piece of work to which some of them can grow the length of a blue whale. They take the cake for the largest creature on Earth and can reach up to 150 feet in length. With a total of 175 species of this kind, they are scattered through all the Earth's oceans. But that doesn't mean you'll find any species in any part. Some are found in the waters of Portugal, nicknamed the man-o'-war for how venomous it is. Despite this alien-looking thing looking like a singular animal, it's actually a colony of individual organisms called zooids. Each zooid has their own specific function for survival, but are genetically identical to each other. Some will focus on feeding and digesting, while others focus on movement, swimming, or reproducing. Since zooids cannot survive on their own as a singular, they band together and depend on each other's help as they form a body. How this works is that a first singular zooid is hatched from a fertilized egg, and then once it develops its growth hormones, it then begins to create more zooids with itself. Nasty, wicked cool. These three submarine divers got a lovely surprise from a visit of a deep-sea female shark. This video is more phenomenal than scary, as it starts out with the shark rolling around on the ocean floor, causing an immense amount of debris to fly around the submarine. When she emerges from this though, they get an amazing shot of her going over with prey in her mouth, really showcasing how large this girl is. Everyone in the submarine is just in awe, rightfully so. She then starts to take a huge interest in the machine, coming up closer again as she observes the submarine, checking out some of the gadgets it has, even trying to nibble at some of them. My favorite shot from this video, however, is when they get a clear image of her eye. How many of you can say you've made eye contact with a shark? It even rolls to the back of her head as she swims away. This lovely lady is known as the blunt-nosed six-gill shark, or the cow shark if you want to be mean about it. They are, sadly, listed as near threatened by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, because they are often exploited as a sport fish due to their popularity. The vampire squid. No, sorry, it doesn't drink the blood of its prey, but rather it was given the name because of its lovely dark red or jet black color. You can find these little guys anywhere in the tropical oceans and temperate waters, if you're willing to travel down 2,000 or 3,000 feet below. Despite only being able to grow up to 12 inches in length, these guys can projectile themselves the length of 2 bodies per second by spraying a jet of water through their mantle. They were first discovered by Carl Chun in 1903, who had an ambition to prove there was sea life past 550 meters below. If only he were here today. They have 8 arms that are connected by webbing, and are able to regenerate if they get into a bit of a scuffle with other sea life. Half of these 8 arms are covered in suckers, and also have small hairs on these legs as well to help detect their prey. It has to wait for for food to come out, since it sadly doesn't have feeding tentacles like other cephalopods, but thankfully only needs to eat twice a week. Their eyes are also considered to be the largest in comparison to their body size of any animal in the world.
Hafgufa is a creature that has its roots in Norse mythology, described as a giant sea monster, often said to be the size of a whole island, lurking in the waters of the North Atlantic. Some stories depict it as a whale-like creature, others say it's a type of sea serpent. It's often associated with the kraken, and some believe they could be the same creature, just with different interpretations. According to the sagas, Hafgufa is so large that its movements could stir up dangerously huge waves, making it a threat to sailors in the region. In fact, it was said that it could swallow entire ships whole with just one gulp. The name Hafgufa is believed to come from Old Norse, meaning sea gulp, which of course fits perfectly with the idea of this creature swallowing anything in its path. Organism 46b is a mysterious creature that became famous after being allegedly discovered in Antarctica, described as a massive, shape-shifting octopus-type being, said to be able to manipulate its surroundings with its tentacles. Some reports even claim that it can hypnotize its prey, paralyzing them with this strange mind-controlling ability. The creature was supposedly discovered by a Russian scientific expedition in 2004. They were investigating the icy waters beneath the Antarctic ice shelf. According to the tale, the team encountered this creature in a submerged lake, with the monster being able to grow to over 30 feet long. The creature is said to have the ability to mimic other creatures, allowing it to blend into its environment or appear as a completely different organism to fool predators or prey. The whole thing got attention after an expedition member supposedly shared the tale online, but there's still no solid proof. It's become something of a Russian government cover-up conspiracy. The Ningen is one of the most bizarre creatures in modern cryptozoology. Allegedly, it lives in the icy waters around Antarctica. Most reported sightings come from Japanese sailors. The Ningen is described as a humanoid sea creature with this pale white body that some say resembles a giant twisted version of a human. That's what makes this thing so creepy. The creature is said to be massive, often reported to be around 20 to 30 meters long or 65 to 98 feet, with a head, arms, and legs, but no real distinct facial features. The first report came about in the early 2000s when Japanese fishermen and crew members of research ships started talking about sightings of this bizarre thing. Some say they've seen it swimming near the ship or breaching the surface like a whale. What makes the Ningen so creepy isn't just its size or its appearance, but the way it seems to avoid any form of human contact, keeping its distance and vanishing as quickly as it appears. The Kraken is one of the most infamous sea monsters in folklore, often depicted as this giant octopus or squid type thing that terrorizes sailors by dragging entire ships under the sea. The legend dates back to the 18th century. Stories of a colossal creature lurking off the coasts of Norway and Greenland. Like with many legendary creatures, there are different descriptions, but it's usually said to be so massive that its tentacles can reach out and capsize ships with a single swipe. Some sailors even reported seeing the Kraken's huge arms rise above the surface like a massive wall, causing a storm of panic before the ship was dragged into the deep. The Kraken seems about as outlandish as it gets, but here's the thing. It may not actually be pure fiction. Some think that what these sailors were describing may have actually been giant squids, which can grow to over 40 feet long. The Leviathan. Pretty much the ultimate sea monster, one that's haunted our collective imagination for centuries, even if we don't know it. It comes from ancient texts, most famously the Bible, where it's depicted as this fearsome sea serpent, which has really become the archetype for all monstrous sea creatures. The description varies depending on who's telling the story, but it's often depicted as this enormous dragon-like beast with scales tough enough to withstand the toughest of weapons. Some tales paint it as a creature of chaos, one that could swallow ships whole or cause storms to wreck entire fleets. The name Leviathan comes from the Hebrew Bible, where it's described as an ancient creature of the deep, sometimes associated with destruction and darkness. Over the centuries, it's been linked to the sea itself, a symbol of the unknown and the powerful forces of nature that sailors feared most.
The colossal squid is a creature that is not to be confused with the giant squid, which is similar, but slightly smaller. These guys live in the darkest, coldest depths surrounding the waters of Antarctica. This creature lives up to its name as it reaches an average of 46 feet in size, and it weighs around 500 kilograms, with the females being the largest of the species. They also have large tentacles equipped with suckers that have little razor hooks on them to better latch onto its prey, so let's hope it's not you. Its diet mainly consists of large fish, such as the 7-foot Patagonian toothfish, and small ones, and some even consume their own kind. But they've also been known to try and consume even larger prey, like sperm whales, who often have been seen with scars attributing to the battles they must have faced. They're colossal, they're scary, and they're ambitious. What more could you want from a sea monster? Only 2 specimens have ever been collected, with the second being found recently in 2014, so on top of how frightening they are, they're also extremely elusive. In our number 9 spot today, we have the scalloped hammerhead shark. These sharks of course belong to the hammerhead family, and the main feature is their oddly shaped heads. These guys are a coastal pelagic species, and their eyes and nostrils can be found at the ends of the tips of their head extensions. These sharks like to use the shore as a breeding ground, and their young have an incredibly high metabolic rate, which means that they need a ton of food or else they will starve. These guys are quite notable for their large and complex brains. They have quite high levels of cognitive capabilities, and they're often really socially intelligent. They have complex migratory patterns and habitat relationships, and they are very athletic and clever when it comes to capturing prey. Nothing better than a super smart, extremely hungry shark. Their brains are great for the species in a multitude of ways, of course, but especially in terms of reproduction. Because of their social intelligence, it helps them to seek out the fittest members of the species to procreate with. Unfortunately, as of this year, however, the scalloped hammerhead shark is now listed as critically endangered, with the main cause for the population decline being overfishing. They are over-harvested because of their large size, as well as the fact that apparently their fins have a high fin needle content, and so they are sold for $100 to $120 US per kilogram. In our number 8 spot today, we have tiger sharks. Tiger sharks are a species of shark that are the only surviving member of their genus. These macro predators can grow to be quite large, reaching lengths of over 5 meters or 16 feet and 5 inches. They're usually found in tropical and temperate waters, and their tiger name comes from the dark stripes that can distinctly be seen running down its body, although these marks do fade as the sharks mature. Tiger sharks live mostly solitary lives, and they are nocturnal hunters. They are well known for having quite the variety of prey, which includes crustaceans, fish, seals, birds, squid, turtles, sea snakes, dolphins, and even other smaller sharks. Unfortunately, these sharks are nearing a point of being a threatened species due to finning and fishing by humans, but it is thought that the Bermuda Triangle might be home to a secret sort of breeding ground for these guys. Hopefully, if this is the case, we can find a way to help protect the area so that the species can once again thrive. After the great white shark, tiger sharks are the second in line when it comes to the most recorded fatal attacks on humans, but although that sounds terrifying, these events are extremely rare. I learned that from the documentary that I watched. In our number 7 spot today, we have the deep sea lizardfish. Deep sea lizardfish are a small family of deep water fish who are related to the telescope fish. These guys have flat heads and curved, barbed teeth, and they grow up to 78 centimeters or 31 inches in length, which makes them a pretty moderately sized fish. They prefer to stay at depths of 1,600 meters or 5,200 feet, and they're actually one of the world's deepest living apex predators. These lizardfish are known to eat anything that comes their way, including other fish of their own kind. Despite the lack of light in the depths of the ocean, these guys have really large eyes and pupils, and their vision is actually really important for their prey detection, as their well-developed eyes allow them to see any residual or bioluminescent light. Not a lot is known about their reproduction habits, but one thing that is known is that deep sea lizardfish have both male and female reproductive organs, which is thought to be an adaptation to low population density. In our number 6 spot today, we have the flying spaghetti monster. I know, it sounds a little silly, but I swear this creature really does exist. This deep sea creature is a species of siphonophore that can usually be found in the Atlantic Ocean. While these guys appear to be one organism, they're actually a colonial organism, which means that they're composed of many medusoid and polypoid zooids. Zooids are multicellular units that develop from one single fertilized egg, and they combine to create functional colonies like the flying spaghetti monster.
Sometimes marine life doesn't really care and will in fact attack your equipment. An extremely rare bioluminescent deep sea squid, known as the Dane octopus squid, was caught going in for a researcher's camera thinking it was food. The footage was was caught with only being below by 1 kilometer down, and all that the crew was really aiming for was to observe the biodiversity of the seafloor. This squid is one of the largest known deep-sea squids, with this specific one being 75 centimeters long, just under a meter, but can grow up to 7 feet in length. One of the scientists stated, "Descended on our camera assuming it was prey and tried to startle it with its huge bioluminescent headlights. It then proceeded to wrap its arms around one of our other cameras, which in turn captured the encounter in even greater detail. I think we were very lucky to have witnessed this." This squid is not only popular for its size, but rather the photophores it produces, making it the largest light source known to be in the sea as of right now. Truly beautiful, yet terrifying at the same time. This video was taken in the Gulf of Mexico with an ROV, a remotely operated vehicle that most underwater explorers used when they're exploring the deep blue sea. It's a little grainy, but we can still make out some sort of jellyfish-like creature making a very creepy appearance. I'm not sure what the researchers were doing in this video with the box, but as they pull away, some crazy-looking tentacle creature makes its way over to it in a rather aggressive manner. If it is a jellyfish, it's definitely not one I've ever seen before. Its body is circular from one angle, but as it rotates we see that it's actually completely flat rather than spherical. Going through the comments, people seem to agree that it's what's known as a clinging jellyfish, and are usually found in the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. We don't have to worry about seeing them at beaches though, since they prefer a more calm and solitude environment. The internet is going crazy trying to decipher what type of jellyfish this is. Majority are saying that this is a comb jellyfish, but its odd shape at the beginning, looking very alien-like, has people fighting one another in the comments section. But as I further read into comb jellyfish, they might just be correct. Some are known to have round bellies and even tentacles like the one in this video has, but also makes them a part of a different family than the average jellyfish. They get their names because they use these things called cilia, which are little hair extensions on their body that help them swim, and also give the appearance of a brush and comb. It's really hard to see it in the one on this video, especially with its deep black color, but we do get a moment of the comb jelly lighting up in a rainbow effect, which the cilias along with its body are producing. They do this when they are obviously threatened. I mean, I would too if I had a giant submarine camera in my face. In the end of this video, people also argued if it was accidentally torn to shreds or it produced its own ink. I believe the latter because this species of jellyfish can ink as well. A weird crossbreed of jellyfish and squid. These freaky little guys are found all over the world, ranging from the tropics all the way to the poles, but surprisingly not in fresh water. The deep sea lizardfish, one of the world's deepest living apex predators. These guys are ruthless because not only will they just eat about anything, they won't hesitate to nibble on someone they know. They are also hermaphrodites, having both male and female parts, to which scientists are speculating that it's because of their low population. However, when they do breed, they seem to have a maximum cap at how many they will produce, keeping just enough to have the species thrive, but not over the top to where finding food becomes an issue. Interesting. There really isn't that much known about these fish, as they just typically like to hang around on the ocean floors, going as far deep as 3,500 meters. They will literally just sit on the ocean floor as they wait for their prey to come by, trapping them with multiple rows of extremely sharp and long needle-like teeth. Maybe it's because this video was taken in 1998, but the eerie blue lighting does not help its case, making it all the more terrifying as its glowing eyes glare right back at you. The goblin shark, also nicknamed the most unhinged, ugliest creature to ever exist. Sorry, that was personal. These crazy looking things are found in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans, but the most common sightings are off the coast of Japan. One cool thing about them is that they are living fossils from over 100 million years ago. They come from the family Mitsukurinidae and are the only living representative that comes from that ancient lineage. They also have some pink coloring on them due to their translucent skin, making their blood the reason why they give off such a pretty color. And much like humans and our eyes, they grow into their noses, so they are born with quite the big honker until they reach adulthood. The reason why they're on this list though is because of how they eat. When they come up to their prey, their jaw literally unhinges and launches forward, its skin stretching as it reaches out to eat its meal. Thankfully though, these are found deep below the surface, as deep as 4,300 100 feet, one even being recorded at exactly 4,490 feet below. The adults usually like to hang far below more than the younger generation.
Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot we have foraminifera. These guys are giant, single-celled organisms that are kind of like oversized amoebas, and they can be found in the sediment on seabeds throughout the world. In 1995, however, when Japanese researchers were able to collect samples of sediment located in the Mariana Trench, they found 432 living foraminifera. I know I made these guys sound really large before, but I just mean large in terms of the single-celled organism world. They are still super tiny, and they are usually found with a hard outer shell, but not these ones that were found in the trench. These guys have found a way to adapt by basically building their own shells from proteins, organic polymers, and even sand. The ones most commonly found in the Mariana Trench are called xenophyophores, and these guys use the fact that grains of sand are mostly made of silicon dioxide, which is the main constituent of glass, to their advantage. They basically glue sand from ocean sediments, cast-off shells, and microbial skeletons to make their own kind of pressure-proof shells. So I guess these guys really are like the engineers of the deep sea. In our number 9 spot today we have the benthocodone. We have all seen a jellyfish before, but these deep sea dwellers are unlike any of the ones that we usually find. Firstly, they prefer depths of around 2,500 feet or 762 meters, usually right on the sea floor. These guys are actually quite small and compact, with their bell usually measuring just 2 to 3 centimeters in diameter. Despite their small size, however, they still have around 1,500 little wispy tentacles that help to propel them through the icy cold depths. These jellies like to chow down on small crustaceans and tiny unicellular organisms, but sometimes their meals are bioluminescent, which is what has led them to develop one of the other unique features on these jellies. This unique feature would be the red color that can be found in part of their bell. Most jellyfish we know of are transparent, and if this was the case for these ones, their bioluminescent meals would be a dead giveaway for the larger hungry predators lurking around the deep sea. This is why the bit of a red that they have in the bell is so important to their survival, as it acts as a cover for this blue glow so that they continue on their merry way throughout the dark depths of the ocean. In our number 8 spot today we have aluminum plated amphipods. These guys are found throughout the Mariana Trench, including in the Challenger Deep, which is the deepest part of the trench. Amphipods usually have shells made out of calcium carbonate, but the extreme environment in these guys' habitats makes their shells basically just dissolve. They of course can't just be walking around naked and shellless, so what do? They adapt in order to preserve their shells. After collecting some of these guys from the deepest parts of the ocean, scientists were able to realize that their exoskeleton contained aluminum on the surface, which then led to the question, how did these guys find the metal since it is pretty sparse in seawater? Well, as it turns out, these guys use sugar-based chemicals in their bellies to extract aluminum ions from the mud on the sea floor that it ends up ingesting while devouring the plant debris that floats down from the surface. In alkaline seawater, these aluminum ions form what is called aluminum hydroxide gel, which is a compound that we as humans use for things like protecting our upset stomachs from stomach acid. This gel then coats their shell and acts as a type of chemical protection so as to keep the calcium carbonate exoskeleton from dissolving. I don't know, I just think that's one of the coolest things that I've ever heard a shrimp do. This is the first known amphipod to do something like this, and these guys are now an important part of researching how maybe one day we can find an environmentally friendly way to produce aluminum. In our number 7 spot today we have the deep sea hermit crab. Okay, many of us have seen or at least heard of a hermit crab before, so at first thought they're the weirdest thing out there, but as it turns out the deep sea variety is quite interesting. Instead of these guys carrying around empty gastropod shells like the hermit crabs we're used to, these guys instead carry around sea anemones, and it is one of the weirdest looking things I've ever seen in my life. It looks like these crabs are missing a pair of legs, but instead the legs have actually been adapted to hold the anemone in place. It's definitely an incredible evolutionary advancement for these crabs, but I just can't help but be creeped out by it. In our number 6 spot today we have barophilic bacteria. This bacteria is characterized by its preference for an environment with pressure greater than atmospheric pressure, which of course makes a place like the Mariana Trench a perfect candidate for a home. These bacteria have been isolated from deep sea environments and found to grow rapidly at low temperatures and high pressures. This low temperature high pressure combo that is found in the deep sea environment is usually the cause for the decrease of the fluidity of lipids, as well as the depression of the function of biological membranes, but this doesn't happen in this bacteria, which has led to the theory that they must have some sort of mutation to have a sort of mechanism that allows their lipids to adapt to their extreme environments. Aside from their superpower, these bacteria help to support life by being a source of carbon for the deep sea animals that end up ingesting them. In our number 5 spot today, we have the faceless cusk eel. Anything that's called faceless certainly can't be good, and this eel is absolutely no exception. These guys don't have a face, and they honestly look like the dementors of the deep sea. The first time one of these was found was in 1973 when oceanographers aboard the HMS Challenger discovered it, but for a century, no one else came across one of these guys. Perhaps it's because they like to make their home in the icy waters located 13,000 feet below the surface of the ocean. Just a few years ago, when these guys were sort of rediscovered, one of the leaders of the expedition, Tim O'Hara, told The Guardian that, quote, "It looks like 2 rear ends on a fish." Really. Apparently, the mouth of these guys sits underneath its body and can extend out to catch food before disappearing back inside its own body. It's kinda cool, kinda gross. In our number 4 spot today, we have the fang-tooth fish. The fang-tooth fish has a mouth full of razor-sharp teeth, perfect for clutching just about any size of prey in its jaw. That's right, any size. They live in the deepest parts of the ocean, the deepest having been recorded around 16,000 feet. That is until they just so happen to feel like migrating up to the surface for a little vacation. Unlike a lot of other deep-sea dwellers, fang-tooths do not have any bioluminescent organs to attract their prey. That is because they're not the sit and wait kind of predator, and instead they seek out their lunch using their excellent sense of smell. They are more active than most deep sea dwellers and heavily rely on any light that may sink into their dark home. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Pacific viperfish. The Pacific viperfish can be found at different areas in the ocean, depending on the time of day. They usually like to stay in the baffle zone, which is about 100 meters to 400 meters below the surface of the ocean, but during the nighttime, they will sometimes rise up into much shallower water because there is more food for them to eat. It's easy to pick out which fish is a viperfish because of the fact that its jaw is sticking out forward, and then they have those extra long pointy teeth. The Pacific viperfish is predatory and mostly eats other fish, but it will also chow down on crustaceans, plankton, and shrimp. This fish can grow to be about 1 foot long, and they are considered one of the most aggressive fish for their size. I know it's only 1 foot long, but hearing how vicious it is, coupled with how ugly it is, and I really don't want to be anywhere near this thing. One cool thing about these fish though is that they have what is called ultra black skin, and it reduces the reflection of anything that is illuminated around them so that they can camouflage themselves easier in the darkness of the deep sea. In our number 2 spot today, we have the sea spider. Okay, if you're like me and don't like the spiders that exist on land, unfortunately this one is not going to be up your alley. Sea spiders are giant, and they like to suck the life out of their prey. Yeah, how terrifying and honestly gross. They basically just latch onto their prey for dear life and suck out all of the fluid that they possibly can. They are gross, but they technically aren't actually spiders. These guys have a leg span that is comparable to some of the largest land spiders, but the thing with these guys is that they carry their organs in their legs, because I mean they're basically all legs. The good news is that they prefer the really cold temperatures like the ones in the waters surrounding Antarctica, so unless you're planning on taking an icy cold plunge anytime soon, you're unlikely to encounter one of these creepy crawly sea creatures. In our number 1 spot today, we have the megamouth shark. These guys are a species of deep water shark that is rarely ever seen by humans, so there is so much about them that remains a total mystery. Since its discovery, which first came in 1976, there have been fewer than 100 specimens ever observed or caught. These guys are planktivorous, which means that they like to feed on planktonic foods. This leads to them swimming with their mouths wide open, and this, coupled with their extremely large heads and lips, makes them easily recognizable if you were to ever run into one on a casual trip to the deep sea.
News of this just came out a few months back. Scientists finally filmed a colossal squid in its own habitat for the very first time. Not a washed up carcass or something snagged by accident, but a living juvenile cruising through the Southern Ocean near the Sandwich Islands, about 2,000 feet down. Kat Ballstead, a squid researcher at Auckland University of Technology, confirmed the footage and said, "This is the first confirmed footage of the colossal squid at home in the deep sea. This is honestly one of the most exciting observations we've had," end quote. Now, the squid they caught on camera was only about a foot long, but adults can reach up to 23 feet and weigh over 1,100 pounds, making them the biggest invertebrate on Earth. Their eyes alone are massive, about the size of a soccer ball. Squid expert Aaron Evans actually said he started hyperventilating when he saw the footage come through. For good reason too. Most of what we know about colossal squid comes from dead ones, pulled up by fishing nets or from pieces found inside sperm whale stomachs. Kat Ballstead explained why they've been so elusive, saying they know we're there long before we know they're there. They are actively avoiding us. This is a photograph of a coelacanth taken in Indonesia for the first time. This is the Indonesian coelacanth, a species scientists believed had gone extinct for 70 million years. Marine biologist Alexis Chapuis spotted it while diving in the Maluku archipelago about 475 feet below the surface. Back in 1938, a coelacanth was pulled up in a fishing net off South Africa, and it was described as one of the biggest natural history discoveries of the 20th century. Since then, sightings have been rare. In 2013, Laurent Balesta managed to photograph wild coelacanths at Sodwana Bay, South Africa, but that was the other known species. The Indonesian coelacanth is different. Researchers are keeping the exact dive location secret for now because the fish are so sensitive to changes in their environment. They don't want people flocking to the area to try and spot one themselves, let alone trying to haul them out of the water. In 2015, researchers studying underwater volcanoes near the Solomon Islands ended up filming something they weren't even looking for: a massive shark that wasn't supposed to be there. Brandon Phillips, a PhD student at the University of Rhode Island, had been dropping baited cameras called drop cams into the deep sea to check out life near an active volcano called Cavachi. One of those cameras went down over 3,000 feet and came back with a bit of a surprise. When the team downloaded nearly 8 hours of footage, they spotted what looked like a giant brown blob in one of the thumbnails. Phillips said, "Both of us looked at each other and said, we gotta look at that thumbnail right now." And when they opened the file, they started yelling. They just filmed a sleeper shark, something nobody expected to see that far south. "We were freaking out," Phillips said. Experts later said the shark was probably a Pacific sleeper shark. And if that's the case, it means this was the farthest south anyone had ever seen a Pacific sleeper shark. Sleeper sharks are rarely filmed alive at all. They usually live deep, can grow over 20 feet long, and decompose quickly when brought up, so they're pretty hard to study. In November of 2021, researchers at the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute were out with their ROV called Doc Ricketts when they came across a giant phantom jelly. Very, very rare sight. It showed up almost a kilometer underwater in Monterey Bay. Its bell alone is over 3 feet wide, and then it trails 4 long arms that can stretch more than 30 feet. It's massive. Now, MBARI has done thousands of dives. They've only ever spotted this jelly a small handful of times. In fact, since the species was first collected back in 1899, there have maybe been 100 confirmed encounters worldwide. It seems to live all over the planet, in every ocean except the Arctic, but because it lives so deep down, it basically stays hidden from us. Before we had high-tech cameras, scientists tried to study creatures like this using trawl nets. That worked for fish and squid, but with jellies, it was basically useless. They just turn into mush. Now with ROVs shooting high definition, even 4K video, we're finally seeing the phantom jelly the way it actually looks in its natural habitat. Back in 2000, Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute's ROV Tiburon was out exploring the deep off Monterey Bay when researchers saw something they couldn't really place. Nobody knew what to call it, so they just nicknamed it the mystery mollusk. Over the next 20 years, MBARI kept spotting it more than 150 times, and finally, after a lot of work in the lab, they confirmed it's actually a brand new kind of sea slug called this. And this thing lives in the midnight zone, thousands of feet down. Unlike most sea slugs that crawl on the seafloor, this one kind of swims in open water. To eat, it uses that giant hood-like thing on its head, almost like a Venus flytrap, snapping it shut on its tiny prey. It's also bioluminescent. Researchers even saw it detach one glowing finger-type thing from its tail as a decoy to confuse predators. When we first filmed it glowing with the ROV, everyone in the control room let out a loud "ooh" at the same time, said scientist Stephen Haddock. DNA tests also showed that it's so different from other sea slugs, it's enough to get its own separate group in the sea slug family tree. As MBARI's Bruce Robinson put it, our discovery is a new piece of the puzzle that can help better understand the largest habitat on Earth.
In our number 5 spot today, we have vent crabs. Vent crabs are so named because they absolutely love and thrive in the extreme environment that is found at hydrothermal vents. These white crabs are actually endemic to hydrothermal vents, and they were first described in 1980. The crabs in this family are usually blind and abundant. In fact, their numbers are so vast that scientists often use the clusters of them to help find the location of hydrothermal vents. The eyes of vent crabs are what I really want to talk about today because they change throughout their life, which helps them adapt to their environment. Young vent crabs usually have eyes that would be comparable to their shallow water companions, but upon metamorphosis, their eyes degenerate and they become naked retinas. Hydrothermal vents produce light in the infrared wavelengths, and this change in the vent crab's eyes was made through evolution because it actually allows them to better see this light, although it causes them to not be able to see most other things. It's like a similar concept to night vision goggles. So basically, vent crabs have night vision. Kind of. It is so interesting to see and learn about how deep sea creatures adapt to their individual environments and circumstances. In our number 4 spot today, we have baby shark. So apparently, shark fetuses with 2 heads are becoming more common around the world. Who would have thought? According to experts, the mutation that leads to this trait is known as axial bifurcation, and it's seen not just in sharks but other animals as well, including humans. The question though is why it is starting to happen more and more often in sharks. Sadly, this mutation has quite a negative impact on the sharks, as it is unlikely that the sharks with this mutation will even live to see their own birth, but for those who do survive until birth, it is highly unlikely that they will survive long in the wild. Right now, scientists are working hard to figure out what is causing this mutation specifically in the sharks. The leading theories include overfishing, which is leading to a smaller gene pool and thus a higher susceptibility to genetic mutations, or even potentially things like metabolic disorders, pollution, or viral infections. In our number 3 spot today, we have the brittle star. This is a species that was found in 2011, but it took 10 years for it to be researched and fully classified, which happened just last year in 2021. This is a species of brittle star that was found during an expedition on the Banque Durand seamount, which is off of the coast of New Caledonia in the Pacific Ocean. This specific brittle star first caught the attention of experts because of 2 atypical features. One was that it had 8 arms. This was unusual because most have 5, and the other unusual feature is their 8 sets of razor-sharp teeth. It is believed that these teeth, which line every jaw, are used to snare and shred their prey. This creature definitely is quite remarkable and is the product of millions of years of evolution, where it has adapted and changed greatly to fit its needs in the changing environment around it, but it is likely the last survivor of an ancient lineage which dates back to the Jurassic period. In our number 2 spot today, we have giant isopods. Despite their appearance, these guys are neither aliens or pill bugs and are just one of those strange and weirdly large deep sea creatures. These rather large crustaceans can reach lengths of around 15 inches, and while that's not the biggest deep sea creature out there, that's pretty insane for the isopod world. These guys get their size from what is known as deep sea gigantism, which is an evolutionary tendency for deep sea creatures to grow larger than their shallow water counterparts. It isn't exactly clear why this happens, but it does and is seen in a few different species. It is thought that this may be due to the cold temperatures, which may increase cell size and lifespan, which both may lead to increased body size. In our number 1 spot today, we have the deep sea dragonfish. These guys are a pretty pretty strong contender for strangest looking animal on this list. These predatory fish use their fang-like teeth to grab onto their prey in their dark, cold deep sea environment. They have no scales and instead have slippery eel-like skin, which only adds to their creepiness level. Similar to the anglerfish, which you might be familiar with thanks to the Disney Pixar classic Finding Nemo, these guys have a little lighted barbell that hangs from its lower jaw in order to attract its prey towards it. These fish really use bioluminescence to their advantage, but they also have another, less common ability. Firstly, since many of their prey are also bioluminescent, they have adapted to have a special stomach that will ensure that the light cannot be seen from inside of their stomach so as to not give away their position. Secondly, they're able to produce a red glow. This glow is thought to perhaps be used to signal other dragonfish, but it is definitely used by them to illuminate and detect their prey. They are the only known fish that has the ability to both produce and see red light, as most fish can only see more of a blue light.
This first creature on the list is the Protolophila. Not exactly a household name, but that's probably because this thing was believed to have gone extinct not 100 years ago, not a couple thousand even. Scientists thought it went extinct about 4 million years ago. This tiny sea creature related to corals and sea anemones usually only shows up as little holes on the tubes of marine worms. Until recently, it was only known from fossils found in Europe and the Middle East, but when scientists in New Zealand dug up fossils of this thing that were supposedly from a time after the species had already disappeared, it got them curious enough to go back and check some tube worm samples they'd collected back in 2008, and it turns out Protolophila had been alive and well in New Zealand waters the whole time. They just hadn't noticed. As National Institute of Water and Atmospheric Research scientist Dennis Gordon put it, it's one of those rare cases where studying fossils actually led to finding a species still alive today. Amura's whale is a ghost of the ocean, so rare that until 2015 scientists had never seen one alive. They were first confirmed as a separate species in 2003, based on DNA and physical differences from Bride's whales. But even then, they were known only from dead specimens. That all changed in October of 2015 though, when an international team of biologists filmed Amura's whales off the coast of Madagascar. They spotted 44 individuals and collected some samples, making it the first time this whale had ever been documented alive in the wild. Amura's whales are pretty small by whale standards, only about 32 to 39 feet long or 10 to 12 meters, and people often mistake them for Bride's whales. One of the coolest things about them is their asymmetrical lower jaw. White on the right side, dark on the left. Their fins are unique as well, which make them easier to tell apart if you're lucky enough to see one. Since that first footage, Amura's whales have popped up a handful of times, but sightings are still rare, and scientists still have a lot to learn about them. For almost 50 years, nobody had seen the Pastrum cyathiform, a rare stalked jellyfish that was last spotted in France back in 1976. Most experts figured it had gone extinct. But then Neil Roberts, just a tourist on an island off the coast of Scotland, flipped over a rock and found 4 of them. Roberts took some photos, but when he looked online, he noticed what he'd just photographed didn't really match any other photos. The only thing that looked close were old drawings. Turns out Neil had just taken the first ever photo of the species. Guy Freeman, editor of British Wildlife magazine, was amazed. When Neil first shared the photos, it was like seeing a ghost, Freeman said. Continuing, this thing had only ever existed in old drawings. It was suddenly there in the flesh. This image was shared to X by the National Parks Board, who wrote, "The Neptune's cup sponge is the first animal described from Singapore. It was collected in Rafflesia's presence in 1819 and described by Thomas Hardwick, presumed to be extinct until its reappearance in the region. It was rediscovered here in 2011. So a bit more on this. Neptune's cup is a sea creature people thought was gone for good. By 1912 it was considered extinct because it had been overharvested. Then in 2011, divers off Thailand and Singapore found a handful of these things alive. Singapore moved some to a marine sanctuary to protect them, but the same sanctuary is full of fish like map puffers and copperband butterfly fish that love snacking on them. Not exactly ideal, but since 2017, more have been spotted off Cambodia. Unlike most sponges that attach to reefs, these guys just anchor themselves in the sand at the bottom of the ocean. Turns out they weren't extinct, they were just really good at hiding. Two fishermen off Gran Canaria got the surprise of their lives when they came face to face with one of the ocean's weirdest predators, a goblin shark. Now, the thing is, these sharks are found way deep below the surface, but this one turned up while Marcos Hernandez and Ramon Santana were fishing. When it came up, we had no idea what it was, Marcos said. At first we thought it was a swordfish because of the snout, but then we realized it wasn't. It had leathery skin, and after looking online, we understood what it really was. End quote. The shark even showed off its signature party trick, where its jaw juts out. After confirming it was a goblin shark, they released it back into the water. This is the first confirmed sighting of the species in these waters. Goblin sharks are often called living fossils because they've barely changed in over 100 million years. They're rarely seen alive, let alone at these depths. The ruby sea dragon wasn't officially identified until 2015, which is crazy, because that made it the first new sea dragon discovered in 150 years. Washed up specimen had actually been found back in 2007, about 9 inches long, but nobody realized it was a whole new species until later. Unlike the leafy or common sea dragons that have those long decorative frills, the ruby sea dragon looks a little plainer, with short, stumpy lobes. The name comes from its color, obviously bright red. Scientists think that's not just for show. In deeper water, red light, it disappears fast, which actually makes red animals harder to see, so it works kind of like camouflage. That explains why these guys managed to stay hidden for so long, plus they live deeper than most divers can safely go, which meant no one had ever filmed one alive until 2016. That year, researchers used a remote underwater camera up the coast of Western Australia and finally caught one on video, and the footage was published in 2017. One of the weirdest parts of this animal is its tail. Unlike other sea dragons, the ruby sea dragon has a prehensile tail. Basically, it can grab onto things like a chameleon does. Last year, a team of international scientists just blew the lid off one of the most unexplored areas of the ocean. During a Schmidt Ocean Institute expedition to the Salas Vigomis Ridge, a remote range of underwater mountains stretching from Chile to Rapa Nui, they discovered 160 species that hadn't been recorded in the region before, and they think at least 50 of those might be completely new to science. This campaign found between 50 and 60 potentially new species at first sight, a number that is likely to increase, as we have many samples to work on in the laboratory, said one of the lead researchers from the Barcelona Supercomputing Center. The team documented everything from deep-sea corals and sponges to squids, crabs, and fish. The 40-day expedition included 25 scientists from 5 countries, plus the first Rapa Nui marine biologist, Amelia Ra'apalmatuki. Plesiosaur is one of those creatures everyone's been, of course told is long gone, but stories about it keep popping up. For over 100 years, people have claimed to see long-necked flippered animals in lakes and oceans all over the world. Loch Ness in Scotland, Lake Champlain in Vermont, even up the coast of Japan, and we're not talking about tourists who just want a good story, not always anyway. Some seasoned sailors and fishermen will also swear they saw something out there. Probably the wildest case was in 1977 when a Japanese fishing boat pulled up this decaying carcass near New Zealand. The thing had a long neck, flippers, and looked eerily like a plesiosaur. Scientists just said it was a decomposing basking shark. Others weren't so sure. The resemblance was just a little too on the nose. This is a megamouth shark that was spotted off Indonesia. This species is very rarely seen. People didn't even know it existed until 1976. They can grow up to 18 feet long and feed by filtering plankton through their huge mouths. Megamouths live so deep that almost all footage of them comes from deep-sea submersibles, or accidentally they get caught in fishing nets. The megamouth shark was discovered totally by accident in 1976. Unlike most sharks that chase and bite, the megamouth just cruises along with its mouth open, scooping up tiny plankton and jellyfish, almost like a whale. It's such a strange way to feed for a shark, and again, no one had ever seen one until a random encounter with a US Navy ship's anchor line, and since then, only a handful have ever been spotted. About 6 years ago, Ocean X managed something that had never been done before. They tagged this blunt-nosed six-gill shark straight from a submersible, no bringing it to the surface first. Now, these sharks are living fossils. They've been around long before most dinosaurs existed, and they barely ever show up on camera. So this footage you're looking at here is almost like catching a glimpse of what the deep waters of Earth looked like hundreds of millions of years ago.